cow, it's really windy today. I guess fall's coming really fast, huh? I actually might do some testing, I guess, with the drone since I haven't seen this weather in a while to do the testing. I guess with that in mind, what's going on today? Usually with extreme winds, I guess all the trees are going to lose their leaves, but how about with things like wildfire? And in this case, they were really aggressive, I guess, in saying there were drones that stopped their operations, which made me wonder again. But first, this one here says, illegal drones hamper helicopters fighting Chetamon wildfire, Parks Canada. We are weeks, not days, out from rebuilding that transmission infrastructure, ATCO says, of Jasper's connection to the Alberta power grid. So that was kind of the start of why this was kind of weird, where the headline, it talks about drones, but here in this little paragraph, it talks about a power grid and all that. Parks Canada officials are issuing stern warnings about illegal drone use after drones flying near the Chetamon Mountain wildfire grounded 8 helicopters fighting the blaze Tuesday. In a Wednesday update, Parks Canada Fire Management Officer Katie Ellsworth said drone operation is illegal in national parks without a permit, and the recent discovery of drones interrupted crews dropping water from helicopters to suppress the fire burning 15 kilometers from the Jasper town site. This means that critical fire suppression operations were halted. In this case, it was for approximately an hour in the middle of the peak burning period, so we were no longer able to conduct our fire operations, she said. If this activity occurs during an active wildfire day, it could result in an increase of fire behavior. It can result in the injury or death of a firefighter, and if there is an interaction between a drone and a helicopter while they're flying, it can be catastrophic to the pilot and to the helicopter. So lots of warnings and so forth, and from what I gather, they say they actually found who flew it, like a couple of them. They say they're charging them. I'm actually really fascinated to see how close were they, what were they doing and so forth, because just reading a lot of this stuff, like when they talk about that power grid and all that, it makes me wonder. You could say, for example, okay, you shouldn't be there and all that, but was what they were doing so dangerous where they had to stop operations? Because I said again, you wouldn't do that in other situations. It's the same example I used before where I look for consistencies in life, and in general, if there was anything else that was a quote danger to all the helicopter and manned aircraft, like a huge flock of geese, I'm talking about a flock of them, you would not, for example, say, okay, that's it, we gotta ground ourselves for, I don't know, an hour or something like that, correct? You just deal with it and continue your operations. The only real argument I've heard in that regards, in terms of, hey, if there's a flock of geese, that's okay, is because a drone has like a quote, electronic, a battery, it can explode, so that's apparently worse in terms of something crashing into a helicopter and all that. I think that's a little far-fetched. Honestly, a huge geese, for example, like a flock of them is worse than, let's just say, a small toy drone. That's why I'm wondering too, how close was it to the operation and all that to justify that? Because again, you wouldn't do that in a general situation where if you see something like there, a lot of objects, you don't go, okay, that's it, we're grounding and all that, just because we see one within the quote area. I can see if, like, say those geese or whatever are specifically going up to your aircraft, like that is a hazard and all that. Whereas this, I like to see, because in general, it does sound like an excuse in some ways in terms of lashing out. Because this fire has actually been happening for a couple of days actually. Like this one says, what? Out of control wildfire near Jasper, now estimated to cover around 6,000 hectares, Parks Canada. And it says, according to this, it was started by a lightning strike on September 1st, and it grew from 400 hectares Saturday to 1,500 hectares Sunday. So in that regards, it'll be kind of interesting to find out how close were they actually to the actual operation, and is that a factor where people are, let's just say, quote, stressed at a situation where they'll say, oh, we need to find something to yell at and blame that's safe for them to blame, I guess you could say. I guess the easiest example would be, think of it like a sports team. They did really horrible. For whatever reason, it was a bad day and everything just went wrong. For example, goalies letting everything in, players tripping, coaches giving wrong calls and so forth. So ultimately, it was a huge, I guess, failure in that sense, or a difficult situation. And so what happened was, it was now one situation where somebody everyone felt they could pick on, he spilled literally some drink or milk, which caused a delay in the game. They had to clean up the floor. Now for the loss, the team goes, oh, it's because of this guy here. He delayed the game. We lost all our, I guess, adrenaline and all that. Now we lost because of this one person. That would be my concern in this situation, because that seems like a pattern in general. When people keep saying, okay, this drone or whatever in the area caused this delay, because again, you wouldn't do that in a normal situation. That would be my thought for this, and it'll make me wonder, how true is that in general? Because if it's someone, let's just say, I don't know, 5 to 10 kilometers away from the actual operation, let's just say the person flew a quote drone just straight up just to get some pans, and there's a helicopter that said, hey, I can see all the way down there, I don't know, in that mountain way down there, it looks like someone's flying a drone, so that's it, we have to stop the operation. Like that, in my opinion, would be ridiculous if you're saying that was the reason why you stopped, versus if they were literally flying so close to the helicopters and all that just to say, hey, I want a cool shot. That's completely different. So it'd be kind of fascinating to see what the actual, I guess, situation was. Because I guarantee too, just watch this situation, there will be a lot of people saying things, for example, that's why we have over-the-top regulations and all that. I'll ask again, where are all those people? When you hear people, for example, such as a recreational flyer getting attacked by people, got nothing to say. When police crash their drones, actually crash into helicopters, nothing to say. So I wouldn't be surprised if people use that, again, as a way to push whatever it is. And this was actually interesting to read without thought of things, I guess, like regulations and all that. Will this be a thing, I guess, in a lot of places around the world? How about this one here? It says, this city is banning adverts for meat. Could yours be next? Haarlem in Netherlands says it is banning meat ads for the sake of the environment. Wow, how are you gonna do that? Because it's so, I guess, common in many ways, huh? It says, ask any vegan about the meat industry and they'll no doubt chew your ear off about why it's the root of all evil. And you know, they do sort of have a point. Even if you stuff like animal cruelty aside, meat production is one of the leading causes of global warming. According to the UN, a whopping 14% of all greenhouse gases are produced by livestock. One city in the Netherlands agrees and is taking drastic action. Haarlem, about 10 miles from Amsterdam, will become the first city in the world to ban the advertising of meat in most public spaces. That could include everything from supermarket chicken to fast food burgers, though the draft bill hasn't yet specified whether sustainably produced meats would get a pass. What would you think of that personally? It's almost like treating it as if it's a drug or a cigarette, for example. I don't know if that'll be, I guess, feasible in the long run. Can you imagine, for example, having a carnival where you're advertising the food vendors that you have and there's a bunch of people serving burgers? Are you gonna say, okay, it's illegal to have any signage or whatever, you can't include them in the brochures? That'll be a little weird. Because I guess a valid argument would be all that news about things like energy crisis in various parts of the world, where initially some people were like, this is a fantastic idea, but when it comes down to it, they just don't have enough, I guess, power to sustain that type of, I guess, lifestyle that a lot of people have. And now in these cases here, would you actually be able to feed, per se, enough people around the world when you factor it in, or is it just enough for a small group of people during all situations, all weathers and all that? I don't know, that's a little trickier. That's for like scientists and so forth to argue about, but that's why, like for myself, I like to hear all the perspectives, listen to all the facts versus just immediately jumping on and say, okay, this is the best idea ever. I mean, one unfortunate thing is, remember the last couple of days I talked about that story where there was apparently a lady that starved her child to death because she was insistent that he must eat like a quote vegan meal? Like there, you could argue there's extreme ends for both sides. I would say the best solution is probably somewhere in the middle. That's what I would think anyways. First time doing some light tests and some extreme winds. It definitely got knocked around a lot of places. It couldn't hold in some cases. It got the warning message. That's kind of expected with a small one. See you guys later.